54%. That's the number that Kirby has thrown our way a few times this offseason. It's a number that he's really concerned about. I'm here to tell you, I don't think that you should be that concerned about it in relation to the 2025 Georgia team. He said that 54% of the roster is made up of players in their first or second year in the program, people that he would consider young. And in that category, he's also counting transfers. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you should be a little less concerned about it as well. But Kirby has been acting very, very concerned, not just about college football in general, but the youth of his roster because of the changes that are happening around college football. Because of the portal, because of the money being thrown around, Georgia will have to play with the team that has a little less experience than it has the last, I would argue, about 6 years when you go through and look at the roster, probably 7 or 8, when you think about all the older players Georgia has had cycled over and over. That's no different this year. Go and look through this roster, and the people that are actually going to be contributing to this football team, the people that are going to really matter, they're not younger, right? There are a handful of guys with some inexperience or players in their first and second year, but they're talented players that I think you as a Georgia fan or you as a college football fan can look at and say, well, hey, I don't really care that that guy's a sophomore. He's going to be one of the best players in college football. So I think that number, that 54%, he's worried about it from a depth standpoint. What happens to Gunnar Stockton if Gunnar Stockton gets hurt? What happens if KJ Bolden or Nate Frazier or somebody gets hurt? I think that he's worried about it from a depth standpoint. But in terms of this 2025 football team, that 54% number that he's thrown at us, he threw it at us last week, threw it at us at SEC Media Days. The concern that he talked about over and over during the spring about how there's too much youth, there's too much inexperience. There may be some moments throughout the season where you notice that. Maybe you notice it from Gunnar Stockton. Maybe you notice it from Joseph Jonah Ajonye, the defensive end that's probably going to start for Georgia in his second year in the program. Yes. Is it a less experienced roster? Is the starting lineup going to be less experienced? Yes, but go through this and look at the rest of the country too. Everybody's dealing with this problem, and I don't think Georgia is in a bad position when you actually examine it in detail. Ryan Curley from Dawg Post. Barcode, it's below. Use that. Screenshot it if you're watching this on a phone or a tablet. All you got to do is screenshot and click on it. It'll take you to the newsletter. That's what I'm pumping out down below. If you're watching it on a TV or on a different screen, take your camera, look at it. Apparently some people don't know how to deal with the QR code, so that's why I'm going to give you a quick tutorial when I'm advertising it. Make sure you're going to the website. Make sure you're sticking with us here. Tomorrow is the last Saturday without college football until February, right? End of January. So we're finally here. Georgia starting lineup. Gunnar Stockton. Well, yes, first-year starter. This is year 4 for him in college football. This is the exact situation that Georgia was in 2023 with Carson Beck. Redshirt junior, headed into year 4. He's a starter. There was a lot more praise. There was a lot more faith in his abilities than Gunnar's at this point, who actually has more important experience than Carson did heading into this position. I think he shouldn't be the primary concern. And then you look at the weapons that they added. Who are going to be the primary guys? Well, Kobe Young, for sure, after all that we've heard and seen from insiders over the last few weeks. Dylan Bell, for sure. Noah Thomas, the transfer, for sure going to be a big part of this offense. Zachariah Branch, for sure going to be a big part. The youngest guy there is Zachariah Branch. He's a junior. The rest of them have been in college for 4 years and have been in Georgia or the SEC for a couple of years. So I think when you look at offensively, especially from the starting point of the quarterback and the receivers, these are guys that have been around for a while. Move back to running backs. A little bit younger of a group and a little bit less experienced of a group. And the starting point there is sophomore Nate Frazier. Is he ready to be RB1? I think is the real question. Is he ready to take on a big workload? I think he will have a big workload, but this backfield will probably be a little bit more committee style than you think. Well, what else do they have in the committee outside of a very, very talented sophomore, which has never been a problem for Georgia, right? They've relied on young running backs in the past, but there are older guys. Cash Jones, redshirt senior. This guy's been around for a while, and he's going to have his role. Josh McCray, I think, is going to have some sort of role. He's a senior. Roderick Robinson has not played a lot, but now is in his third year of the system. Chauncey Bowens, Dwight Phillips, they're in year 2. The true freshman, Bo Walker's got a lot of buzz, and certainly enough buzz to where you think he'll get some touches. Freshman, I think from the running back position, it's probably not as important in terms of age. But then you look at the offensive line. Drew Bobo, year 4. Micah Morris, year 5. Ernest Green, year 4. These guys are older. Monroe Freeling, year 3. The other position is going to be a sophomore or a freshman, right? If Juan Gaston actually does end up taking that job, right? We're being told from some insiders that he's repping with the ones, and then Kirby confirmed that the other day. So for the most part, this offensive line has some experience and has actually had starting experience. All of those guys outside of whoever's going to end up being that right guard has experience and has started. You got Oscar Delp in the tight end room. You got Lawson Lucky in the tight end room. You're not going to come across a much more experienced duo than that one when you look across college football. So you just look at this offensive side of the ball. How much youth are you actually relying on? How much inexperience are you actually relying on? Not that much. Maybe a little bit on the offensive line, a little bit in the running back room, and then it's a matter of how inexperienced you view Gunnar Stockton. You flip that around, and you look at the defensive side of the ball, and I think there's certainly a little bit more youth on that side of the ball that they might rely on, but that's going to be due to rotating and depth. The days of 2021, specifically 2021, but 22 as well, where you've got Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt and Jalen Carter rotating at your defensive tackle spot while Trayvon Walker's next to you and Tramel Wathauer's next to you, those days are gone. All right, that's probably gone unless they strike gold with a class and guys are ready to compete, which I think with this current freshman class might happen between Elijah Griffin, Darren Ikanagman, and Isaiah Griffin. But when you look across that line, those lines aren't going to happen again, where there's 3 first-round defensive tackles all on one defensive line. That's not normal, and that's a measuring stick that they are up against every single day by us, by you, by people around the country. And that's an unrealistic measuring stick. But when you look at this defense, on the line, there is inexperience. There's experience in terms of being around, right? Between Christian Miller, Jordan Hall, Xavier McLeod now. But there is an experience in playing. I think Kirby is worried about that a little bit. You're less worried about it on the defensive side of the ball with a coaching staff that includes Kirby Smart, Travaris Robinson, Trey Scott, and Glenn Schumann on that side of the ball, filled with a ton of 4 and 5 stars. I think it's a little bit different story when you look on the defensive side. But then you move back one level and you look at the linebackers. Well, one of the best linebacker groups in the country and an outside linebacker room that has now been bolstered by transfer Elo Madozi, who, guess what, was very productive in college football a year ago. So they've got that. You move it back to the secondary, where you'll have a true sophomore starting in KJ Bolden. Well, okay, on paper, he's part of that 54%, right? Because he's a sophomore. And he fits that mold of what Kirby's talking about and the percent that he's worried about. But are you actually worried about KJ Bolden? This guy is making All-American lists. He's making preseason All-SEC lists. He's probably going to be a first-round pick in a year or two, or well, I guess 2 years from now. So you don't worry about that, right? You don't worry about necessarily Nate Frazier, the sophomore. Well, what's the rest of the defensive back room? The probable starters are all juniors and seniors. Janelle Aguero at nickelback, Daniel Harris at corner, Ja'Cory Thomas at safety, Dalen Everett, another senior. So for the 2025 Georgia Bulldogs, it is littered with older players. Some of those older players haven't played a lot. But when you think about championship teams over the last few years, this is just off the dome, off the top of my head. Ohio State, filled with older players, mixed with younger talent. 2023 Michigan, filled with older players. All right, that team was gutted after that season. 21 through 23 Georgia, same notion. Championship contenders or championship winners. 2020 Alabama, same thing. 19 LSU, same thing. Clemson, 18, same thing. Alabama and Georgia, 17, same thing. It's the same thing. They have all these older players. Georgia has that too. This didn't go away. So am I on here refuting Kirby a little bit? I'm refuting his concern, but I think his concern is about the future and the depth. What happens if Drew Bobo goes down and all of a sudden Malachi Tolliver is probably taking snaps at center? a guy who just hasn't played, or if another good, or I guess Gunnar Stockton is your primary example because of Ryan Puglisi hasn't gotten on the field at all, right? He's only been around a year, but hasn't gotten on the field for a single snap, even if it's garbage time. He's worried about it in that sense, but that would have been the same concern most years, where if a certain spot, there are injuries, things are going to be a problem. You saw that last year. It was a problem on the offensive line. It was a problem in the running back room. It's going to be a problem for everybody. If the younger players are ready, which you look at Georgia's roster, you look at the ratings, you look at everything you hear, some of them should be ready to mix in, if not are already playing. I think that this team, though, has plenty of age and experience, maybe just not quite as much as the last few years. It's the same thing for Oregon and Ohio State and Alabama, and not as much Penn State, but Clemson and LSU and all these other contenders. There's a lot of transition for them too. It's not different at Georgia, who has more experience than meets the eye, especially with the numbers. But when you think of these transfers, why would you think Zachariah Branch's not ready? He was just in the Big Ten and the Pac-12 at USC the last couple of years. Noah Thomas coming from within the SEC. Those guys are in that percentage group and not the ones you have to be worried about. I know a lot hinges on Gunnar Stockton, a lot hinges on the fact that he might get injured, and then Kirby's point gets proven here. But your quarterback or any other primary position getting hurt is not a good case scenario anyway, right? You saw a year ago with Carson Beck. I think Kirby has expressed this to a point where it seems like something to be extremely concerned about. But for 2025, I don't think it's a big worry. That's my take. Newsletter in the barcode below. Links are in the bio. Make sure you're checking out DocPost.com, and thank you for watching.